Hey YouTube, I'm always post 975. There's a question down there. When you were a kid, how much of your life were the game magazines? And by that I mean, how much did they influence the games you bought, and to some degree, the systems you bought, or the systems you received, regardless of how you got them, because obviously you were a kid. Were there magazines that pretty much 100% determined what you bought? Now, I understand that, as with modern life, there are other factors, such as TV commercials, peer group pressure, stuff like that. And there were other magazines at the time, but I think it's safe to say, those of us of a certain age, regardless of where we grew up, there were certain magazines that were just the holy grail. They were almost more so than being a magazine. You trusted 100%, the people in these magazines. They weren't so much, columnists. I almost said communists then. They were mates. You really did value their opinion. They did have almost direct control on what you purchased. That may sound like I'm piling on a bit strong, or maybe it's just me, but they at least did to me. And as I said, there were other magazines, but certain ones were more than a magazine. They were literally part of your gaming experience, and those magazines to me were C+VG and Mean Machines. I mean, even outside of gaming, when I'd already purchased the games that they recommended, they were more than that. They were a social device. You would share it with your mates at school. You would read it with your mates at school. You read it on the school bus. You crumple it up and give it to someone else. They stick it in a bag. They take it home. They bring it back the next day. And it was completely and utterly dogged. And as I said, those magazines were C+VG, which was a multi-format magazine in the United Kingdom, doing Spectrum, Commodore, Amstrad, Amiga, Atari ST. But then, because that's how I first became aware of it, was because of having a ZX Spectrum. But then they started covering in this tiny little section at the back called Mean Machines, just a few pages, because this was the infancy of consoles, or the new consoles after the initial crash, such as the NES and the Master System. They started covering those, and this section became so popular because the format did, that it spawned a whole magazine called Mean Machines. Obviously everyone in the UK, I'm preaching to the converted. That magazine then split into Mean Machines, Sega, and the Nintendo version. But these magazines really did determine and dictate what I bought, and not just games. In one degree, a console. That entire collection of games back there, which is a really pieced together collection of my childhood Japanese Megadrive games, almost every single one of them was because of these magazines. Now, I need to say that obviously when I had a Spectrum, there were Spectrum magazines that I absolutely loved and adored. Crash, Your Sinclair, and Sinclair User. Crash was the best. The artwork was incredible. But the difference between these two these two systems, or the magazines for these systems, was I had a ZX Spectrum and our dad bought it for us. So then we went to find magazines for it. But the other magazines, Mean Machines and stuff like that, I didn't have a system. I bought magazines that influenced the system I bought, because I bought my Sega Master System. And then, because of this, I became aware that the Megadrive was coming out, right, it was going to be a year later. And these magazines literally made me go and buy a Megadrive. They were such an important part of my life. So I was just curious, were they as much so for anyone else? And I don't just mean the United Kingdom. I mean, they really were so important. I value these people's opinions so much that, if they said something was shit, I'd stay away from it like a turd in a swimming pool. I mean, I really, really would. The amount of power influence they had on me and other gamers at the time was crazy, and I think the companies knew it. I think almost you could say they may have possibly, strong statement, driven up the quality of games. If they were, on the fence about a system or a title, then I would wait with them, wait to see, what came up in an upcoming issue. It was, as I said, they felt like mates. I remember in Mean Machines they had this brilliant summary system. You used to have playability, graphics, sound, overall, etc. But then you'd have a final little column box with a kind of little cartoon version of the guy who reviewed it, and he'd give you his closing thoughts. I mean, the first thing I used to do when I buy these magazines is go, if there was a title I really knew was coming out and I wanted to read about it, I wouldn't even read the review. I'd go back and do that, but I'd go straight to the summary and read the final closing statement. That final closing statement could sell a game to me. So yeah, I was just curious, did they have a strong effect on you as a kid? But and how important were they to you as a gamer as a kid? And I don't just mean for gaming purposes, but I mean for social purposes, or sharing with your mates at school, etc. So yeah, how important were they to you? And how much an effect did they have on your gaming? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.